We start in the aviation sector, however. Fastjet, the African budget airline backed by EasyJet founder Stelios Hadjiioannou, says it will temporarily shelve plans to launch domestic routes in South Africa to focus on rolling out international flights from Tanzania. The African startup airline mentioned that it had been granted permission to launch international flights from Tanzania to South Africa, Zambia and Rwanda. Now, the airline made those comments after receiving route approvals from the relevant governments under the bilateral air services agreements between Tanzania and other countries. Fastjet has ambitions to become the first Pan-African low-cost carrier. It was created following the acquisition of the Kenyan airline Fly 540. It operates from 4 bases in Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana and Angola. Still on matters aviation, Kenya Airways, Sub-Saharan Africa's third largest airline, reported its second loss in 4 years. It failed to boost passenger numbers and revenues were eroded by a stronger shilling. Now, the airline, which is 26.73% owned by Air France KLM, reported a pre-tax loss of $126.8 million for the period. That followed a 57% decline in pre-tax profit the previous year. Management at the time blamed the festering Eurozone debt crisis, fears of unrest during Kenya's March presidential election, and a string of gun and grenade attacks on Kenyan soil as well, especially following the country's foray into Somalia in pursuit of Al-Shabaab. KQ, however, noted that peaceful elections, lower oil prices and the easing of tensions in neighbouring Somalia all should help it to recover from a tough 2 years that have seen it swing to a pre-tax loss in the year that ended in March. Also on the continent, the curtain falls on the Ghana Mining Summit, which is taking place in the country's capital of Accra. Industry players there are using the forum to push for much-needed reforms, especially at a policy level. Now, the West African country is trying to reel in more investments into the mining sector. With the details, here's CCTV's Penina Karibe.
The Ghana Mining Summit was convened by Ghana's Chamber of Mines and brought together players from the government sector, private sector and even communities that directly depend on the mining industry. Core on the agenda is to promote mining investment in Ghana as well as highlighting its contribution to development.
We are saying at the Chamber that mining must be meaningful to all the stakeholders. For example, if I'm a government and I have investment and I'm not getting any major returns, mining is not meaningful to me. If I'm in a community, my roads were bad before you came to mine. My roads are bad or even worse as you are mining. What is the meaning of mining to me? It's meaningless.
It is on the back of that agenda that the Chamber of Mines drafted the Minerals Development Fund Bill, which seeks to, among other things, address the development challenges affecting communities by setting a higher proportion of royalties.
As a chamber, we have proposed that government should return 30% of royalty receipts. And the royalties receipt here is not all the revenues received by government. It's only the royalties, which is 5% of gross sale of minerals.
Ghana has a long history of mining stretching back to the days of gold trading during the 10th century. Today, the country is the second largest gold producer in the continent after South Africa and is indisputably the mining hub of West Africa. However, the benefits of this lucrative sector are yet to trickle down fully to the ordinary citizen.
Ghanaians do not fully believe that they are getting enough from because after all, the roads that are being constructed, nobody writes on it that this was constructed by the use of mining money. You know, I think that's another issue. That's why we are saying, as a chamber, we are saying government should establish Minerals Revenue Fund.
Ghana is hoping to reposition itself as a gateway to mining investments and business opportunities in West Africa. And industry players hope that more engagements will result into a more meaningful and thriving mining industry. Penina Karibe, CCTV in Accra, Ghana.
As mentioned earlier, the 2013 edition of the New York Forum kicked off in Gabon's capital of Libreville. Leaders from Central Africa have so far described the forum as an important opportunity for public and private sector stakeholders from the region to find solutions to the various challenges they all face in common. Over 1,000 business and political leaders, businessmen and development activists are present for the 3-day event. The Gabonese President Ali Bongo Ondimba says he expects deals will be concluded at the forum that will drive the region's growth over the next few years. CCTV's Peter Okaba joins us now live from Gabon's capital, where the New York Forum on Africa is taking place. Peter, the conference starting off today. What's the latest on day one?
Well, indeed, Rama, the conference getting off to what has been described as a roaring start here in Libreville in Gabon. Thousands of delegates having arrived over the past few days, and today presidents from 6 African countries, indeed only 5 had been expected, but today the leaders of the Central African states, various states from the Central Africa region, were joined by the president of Senegal, who indeed said that his country was also interested in what was going on and learning from what was going on at the New York Forum. One of the things that has been highlighted today is the fact that what is going on here today is all about the youth of this continent. The fact that all the investments that are being made, all the development that is being chased will indeed come to naught if the continent does not invest in its youth. And of course, some of the things that have been talked about going in that direction is the concept of beneficiation, where the minerals and other primary commodities that go out of this continent now have to be refined locally, or indeed taken one stage nearer, closer to the market, right here on the continent, such that much more of the value gets left here behind on the continent, and indeed improves livelihoods while improving the economies of the various nations. One of the people who spoke here earlier today was Larry Summers. He was an economic advisor in the Obama administration, has been Secretary of State or Secretary of the Economy in the US, and what he said was that what has to happen in Africa is that beneficiation has to become a reality, and that concept right across the continent for various things, including oil, timber, oil and such other commodities. Joining me now to talk more on this is Mr. Jacob Wood. He is the Vice Chairman, of the Africa Business Council. Welcome, Mr. Wood. Now, what exactly has been your role here today?
Oh, we are the largely income here.
Yes.
We are to be the good audience because, of course, China have a large investment in Africa. But we should say that Africa need China, China need Africa.
Yes.
So we'll be good audience here because we are not only want come here to invest, but we want to know. We say that how you should understand. You're cooking the food according to the customer taste, right? Like I say today we have there's a lot of different stories. Of course, we understand now, as we say, the youth, right? Because some countries they have a large unemployment. We say the youth should be the country of tomorrow. So luckily, our education, somebody come here want to invest some big schools for training our local youth. For small scale industry, repair cars or do carpenters. So I think we are in a good position to do that. Of course, we have large investment. You can see there's stadiums invested by China. But we think that in really the China come to Africa should be understand Africa culture, right? Should we say that our right hand should be wash the left hand? We'll work together.
One of the concepts that has been talked about here today is beneficiation, such that a lot of the minerals that get off the continent in raw form now have to be refined going forward so that more of the value is left here on the continent. And China has indeed been a partner for Africa in this drive. What do you think needs to happen going forward so that we see this becoming a reality?
Okay, you know that for many countries, for instance, like Liberia, the bomb mines, right? Okay. Also, there are a lot of natural resources. But China really to invest to add value for that. For instance, these countries used to be a large export for the rocks.
Yes.
Okay, the president designed that everything should be processed, add value for that. And China do that. Many manufacturers come here do the timber works. They come with the really the half or semi-ready the material go out to end out the countries. For instance, we are investing in Nigeria for the cocoa industries. We cannot export cocoa just like that. We make the cocoa powders as well as like chocolate. Yeah. So that is we let our African brothers benefit for what they have on the ground.
This is something in the past that has been described as maybe not having been very successful. And the country we are in right now, Gabon, banned the export of raw timber in 2010, and this has been hailed as a success here today.
Yes.
Do you think this is a bold step that other African countries need to take, the fact that they need to say that this is where it stops and that starting now we are going to refine more of our products locally?
Of course, you know, more Africans should be learning what the government doing here. But only one thing should be very important, that all the African countries should be develop their own, for instance, like the policy should be more flexible. Also, let's say infrastructures, let's say have a light. Sometimes don't have light, so it's difficult for the industry to develop. So as many our African leaders should take care of that.
What is the role of bodies such as yours, the China-Africa Business Council, in this drive?
China-Africa Business Council, which is as a large, a lot of members. Our duty is that we introduce Africa to Chinese enterprises. Also, will let African people understand China. So we are in both sides. Yeah. So we should do it very successful.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for your insights, sir.
All right, thank you.
That has been Chief Jacob Wood. He is from Nigeria and he is the Vice Chairman of the China-Africa Business Council. And bodies such as that critical in this continent, Rama, towards going forward, making sure that Africa does indeed benefit more from its commodities and engaging further with various other nations in the drive towards improving the livelihoods of Africans and, of course, achieving that much sought after development. Back to you in studio.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that. CCTV's Peter Akaba in Libreville over in Gabon. He's been keeping tabs on the New York Africa Forum, which has been taking place in Libreville. It started today, and some of those key themes are things we're going to be keeping a very, very close eye on right here for you on CCTV Africa, with specific focus in this particular industry on industrialization. The 20th Conference of African Ministers of Industry ended today in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Now, it is expected that the ministers will endorse a focus on an entirely new set of development goals based on industrialization to replace the Millennium Development Goals, whose implementation window ends in 2015. That said, though, many African countries are way off track in their MDG targets. Many more states in sub-Saharan Africa have a significant lack of infrastructure needed for industrialization, as you just heard from Gabon. And that in turn makes raising capital needed for investments in that sector pretty hard to come by. For this reason, some resource-rich states are now pushing for a greater share of income from natural resources. Beneficiation is one key avenue of that, and that apparently is something the African Union also supports.
I do believe that we need to raise the taxes. I do believe that we are partner. We should come to the table to be partner and to negotiate clearly. And we also need to really make sure that whatever is taken from us is clearly stated, because when we come to the table and then we said exactly, yes, you gave us this, but you in exchange you took this, I think that this is a different dynamic as opposed to, well, thank you very much, you gave us this, and thank you very much, you gave us this. So I think that contract negotiation is very a crucial element.
17:42 GMT, we're taking a short break on BizAfrica. Here's what's coming up next. Workers at Egypt's first motorcycle maker are protesting after the country's authorities failed to approve their license. We'll have the details and the fallout on that when we return.
BizAsia. Asia means business.
Welcome back. We move on to North Africa, where workers from Egypt's first motorcycle maker protested at the Ministry of Trade and Industry there after the ministry rejected to renew their operating license. Now, the company decided to protest to resume production. CCTV's Adel El Marouki now reports.
The dream of having the first Egyptian motorcycle was very close, until the National Traffic Administration rejected to issue it with a license. For 4 months, the company has been negotiating with the government employees with no resolution in sight. So they reverted to their last resort, a strike.
Our company, which is the only main manufacturer of tricycles and motorcycles in Egypt, is going to close its company. And 500 employees will not find a job. So is this fair for the Egyptian industry, or this is not fair? The Egyptian government should support the local industry to create more opportunities.
We wish to have a product written on it, made in Egypt. So we want the minister to help us. For 4 months, I haven't been paid my salary. We are sure the minister will support us because the employees who are hindering our paperwork want bribery and we don't pay.
According to the company, the traffic administration is objecting to the dimensions of the tricycles, yet they gained prior approval from the Egyptian authority for specifications. To remedy the situation, the EAS decided to conduct tests on both motorcycles and tricycles. The decision made only Egyptian motorcycles subject to testing, while the important ones are not.
We create better quality. We have matched the specs of the Egyptian administration, and the ministry gave us license accordingly. And we are better than the imported motorcycles. But the government can't just test us alone, while the imported products are not. This is not just.
We want to manufacture in Egypt to decrease our imports, which will increase the country's GDP and support the economy. If we depend on China, we will have to get US dollars, which the country suffers from its rate right now. And all this mess would be gone if we had our Egyptian products.
The Ministry of Trade and Industry has declined a televised interview at the current time. However, it confirmed to CCTV that the company matched the required specifications for production. The ministry promised to help it resolve its conflicts with the Interior Ministry to make the first Egyptian motorcycle come to the light. After the January uprising, these workers expected to witness unprecedented support for local producers. Instead, their production line froze, threatening their wages that barely survived the country's tarnished economy during the past 2 years. Adil Mahroui, CCTV, Cairo.
As you might have figured out by now, industrialization is quite the theme for tonight's bulletin. Let's get some more insights into the macro environment in Egypt. Yasser Kim is CCTV's business correspondent there. He joins us now live from the capital, Cairo. Yasser, smart cards. Let's talk about fuel subsidies. Smart cards were supposed to be rolled out sometime in June in order to reform the subsidy program. What's the status of that program so far?
Well, it looks successful at the first stage. The first stage is concerned with the depots, moving the petrol from depots to stations, to the petrol stations, not to the consumer yet. And there has been a lot of smuggling. It's said to be around 20% or 20 to 25% of the total smuggling goes in this route. So the new system, by transferring any petrol from the depots to these petrol stations through smart cards has, as the government says, succeeded by 90% in controlling smuggling. The next phase in August will be how to control from the petrol stations to the consumer. It will control smuggling, and it will also control the consumption of petrol. Each person will have 1,800 liters per year, per car per year, of subsidized petroleum or fuel. Any more consumption he will pay according to the international prices.
Indeed. Let's talk about the markets as well. The EGX30 plunging by about 15% or so over the last 4 weeks of trading. Is this entirely about the protest slated for the 30th of June, or are there other factors at play as well?
The last 2 days were linked to the protests at the end of the month. Many Egyptians and Arabs are selling their shares at quite a rate to try, because they feel it will fall off during the demonstrations, so they want to minimize their losses. But throughout the month there were a lot of events happening, a lot of political unrest. There was a problem concerning imposing taxes on shares in the stock market. That was something new, and it hit the market when it was announced by the government. There was the problem with the tycoon Sawira's family. They had some tax problems, and they control about 80% of the companies in the Egyptian stock exchange. There was the problem with the EFG Hermes and Qatar merger, which was not put into force, and this also affected the market for a few days. So there were a number of events that happened throughout the month that affected the market. But right now the fear is concerning the end of month, end of June protests and demonstrations.
Indeed. We'll have to leave it there for the time being, though. Thank you very much for that update. That's CCTV's Yasser Kim live in Cairo. Quite a few interesting events happening in the North African economy. We're keeping tabs on that for you right here on CCTV. Let's make a quick run through the markets for you, see exactly what is happening. Some of the numbers and some of the things that he's been talking about in that link will be showing through very strongly here. The Nigerian all-share index has been having a bit of a rough time. Ended the day lower by about 0.4 in trading today. The all-share index in South Africa ending the day higher, up about 0.8. The 20-share index in Nairobi still very firmly in the grip of that bear run. The Kenyan shilling as well has also taken quite the beating, around 85.50 or so in trading for most of the day today. It's really that story that we've seen all week about the sell-off from emerging market currencies or frontier currencies like the Kenyan shilling going back to the American dollar, likely to hold on for the next week as well. And of course, finally, Egyptian market closed since today is a Friday.